didn't know that he was your brother until you were an adult?
He didn't find out he was his brother until he was like 30.
You related to Bruce Buffer?
But I had an issue because every time he came out and they flashed his name on the screen, it said Michael Buffer.
Meet Michael Buffer, the man with the golden voice, who has made a whopping $400 million by saying these 5 words. Let's get ready to rumble! Making him the biggest fight announcer than anyone in the entire world. Life was good for Michael, announcing the biggest boxing fights in the world, getting into blockbuster movies, video games, and even cartoons. But all of this couldn't have been possible if it wasn't for this one person. In 1989, when Michael was 45, he met someone who would change the course of his life forever, his long-lost brother, the man who does the exact same thing as Michael, but for the UFC, Bruce Buffer. Welcome to World Sports Documentary, where we do short videos on sports and sports controversies. Subscribe and like for the video for more, and this is the story of 2 long-lost brothers who took over the fighting industry. Michael was born on November 2nd, 1944 in Philadelphia, right in the midst of World War II. After Michael's birth, his father left to fight in the military, and when the world came to a standstill, Michael's father came back to his family. But it was now a family he barely knew. Michael's parents eventually ended up having a divorce when Michael was about 2.5 years old.
My parents were married like at 18, 19 years old. World War II. She's pregnant, he goes off. End of the war, he comes back. They don't even know each other. But, at the age of 11 months, because, she had to go and work. And so I went to live with foster parents in Philadelphia area, who I ended up staying there my whole life. So whenever I say mom and dad, I'm talking about the people that raised me.
Wow.
And so lo and behold, Michael was raised by foster parents. I know he explained that to you when he was on your podcast before, under the name of Huber. Huber. That was my foster parents' name. Social security number, high school diploma says Michael Huber. 1965, I enlisted in the Army, and my birth certificate has Buffer on it. And so the very first day I go to report for service and get sworn in, they said, your birth certificate says you're Michael Buffer, you're not Michael Huber. Kid, by the way, your name isn't Huber anymore, it's Buffer. So I became Michael Buffer at age 20.
In the 1950s, Michael's father started a new family and named his son Bruce. Bruce grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he learned his first martial art, judo. But just as he turned 15, his family packed and moved to the sunny shores of Malibu, California. It was there that Bruce's martial arts skills truly took off. He trained with the students of the legendary Chuck Norris and earned himself a prestigious black belt in Tang Soo Do, and later going on into kickboxing. But life in California wasn't all sunshines and rainbows for Bruce. He faced his fair share of fights and struggles.
My warrior spirit initially came from my dad. He probably introduced me to more situations in life, got me in more fights in life than any best friend I ever had. Just old breed, right? They don't make them like that anymore. Right. So he had me watching boxing, like almost fresh out of the womb, teaching me fighting before I went to school, saying you're gonna get stood up, they're gonna try and steal your lunch money. This is what you do. And I did it and it worked. And it's like, I'll always listen to everything my dad tells me.
In the early years of his life in Malibu, Bruce and his family faced financial struggles despite living in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Their financial situation was far from ideal.
When we went broke as a family living in Malibu. We weren't rich. We moved out there, we were middle class. And I remember that one time I went to my mom and I said, Mom, can I borrow $75? My friends and I want to go to Mammoth. I need $75 for my gas and the lift tickets and whatever. And she said, son, I don't have it. And then she came back to me the next day and handed me $75 in cash. And she said, don't tell your dad, right? My mom's not like that, right? I go, I have a good time being a young buck. Come back 2 weeks later, I wake up, it's midnight. I hear them talking in the living room. And they're talking about how they can't pay the rent that month. It's $575 in Malibu and they can't pay the rent, right? And I went back to my room and I just started crying to myself. And I thought, my mom just begged, borrowed, and steal to give me $75 and they can't pay the rent? I will never, ever ask my parents for anything else. I will take care of my parents.
Bruce Buffer's life took a pivotal turn after that life-changing event, which inspired him to pursue a path of entrepreneurship. Despite his success becoming a top salesman in his company, Bruce went on to open multiple businesses, including a jewelry shop and a telemarketing company.
Graduated college, when I went into college after high school, I saw a card on the job board. It said earned $250 to $450 a week selling over the telephone, right? And I think all of us have had some experience in telemarketing when we were kids, right? So I went in, it was office supplies, paper and toner. I got the job, had to be there at 5 a.m, work away. I became the top salesman within 2 weeks, making great money. I saw the sales manager with his feet on the desk, making a couple thousand a week, again, back in 1976, 75. And it's like, think about that kind of money back then. And I thought, I want his job. I had his job within 2 months. And then at 19, I left to start my own company because I thought, they're driving up in their Porsches and their Ferraris, but I'm the one making all the sales. This is easy, right? So I opened up my own company. 70% of the sales force left with me because I was such a closer and a motivator making the money. I wound up getting sued for $1 million when I was 18 years old.
Whoa.
It was the worst summer of my life.
For taking the employees and the business from that other.
That, and I learned that one of my partners that worked there took some leads. The Glengarry Glen Ross leads, took some leads for sales, which gave them some motivation. So their whole reason for the lawsuit was to get me back, right? So I negotiated again. I closed my company, I went back to work, had them pay me more money, had to make me a partner in the company. All the salespeople came back. So it all worked.
While Bruce Buffer was living a life as a successful businessman and entrepreneur, Michael Buffer was slowly starting to become the superstar he is today. And then something unimaginable happened between the two of them.
Back in the 80s, when you were lighting up the ring and cover of Sports Illustrated, I'm following you like there's no tomorrow, and all the other great boxers of the era, because that was one of the greatest eras in boxing.
That was really amazing.
No.
It was really magical. That's the magical.
Magical. Every week we saw the best fight the best, right? Yeah. And I'm a huge boxing fan. My dad was teaching me boxing as a kid. Right out of the womb, we're watching boxing on Saturdays. Why World of Sports, and it was boxing every week. Boxing. Out comes this man, very handsome, debonair, James Bond looking, dressed to the nines, brought a whole new flair to the world of announcing. And I became a huge fan, but I had an issue because every time he came out and they flashed his name on the screen, it said Michael Buffer. Started looking him up, getting all the information. I found out that he grew up like 20 miles away from me, where I grew up in Philadelphia. And I'm like, okay, this is really getting close. What's going on here? 6 months pass and people are coming up to me as he's getting more popular and say, hey, is that your brother, Michael Buffer, the guy that goes, let's get ready to rumble? And I'm like, no, my brother's Brian, who I grew up with my whole life. But it kept happening and happening. So then my dad and I are driving up north to San Francisco, and I'm telling him what's going on. And I said, Dad, do you have any idea who this guy is? This is what I got. I think that's your brother.
No way.
He goes, son, I never told you, I've been married to your mom, for 35 years, whatever it was at the time. And, but I never told you, your mom never told you, but when World War II, when I went over to do my part, overseas as a Marine when I was 20, I was married briefly for 9 months. And when I came back, a son was born and a divorce ensued. And the last time I saw him was when he was 2.5. I had, there was a casino, the Reseda Country Club in the Valley here, where they filmed that first scene in Boogie Nights, that great long camera shot. So they used to have a lot of great boxing there, boxing events. The Goosen brothers used to put on shows there all the time. And he was there in a small arena. So my brother Brian and I were telling Dad, why don't you call him, leave a message.
I get a phone call where I'm doing the fights at Dan Goosen's Reseda Country Club on ESPN. A phone call comes in and says, a guy by the name of Joe Buffer called and said, give him a call. Now, I always knew my birth father's real name. So we chatted and decided to meet for dinner. Nice guy. He had a great voice, too.
Then we come together 2 weeks later. We meet La Trattoria, I'll never forget it, Barrington and Wilshire. Little Italian place on the second floor, and I'm waiting for Michael to walk in. In walks Michael, and it's just I can't even put into words the feeling that I had that evening, and that was the beginning of where we're at today.
And from this moment, these two brothers started to take control over the fighting announcing world. With Michael's fame and Bruce's business mindset, they started to create the Buffer Dynasty. In 1992, Bruce Buffer attended a boxing match between two heavyweights with, of course, his brother announcing the fight. During Michael's famous line, "Let's get ready to rumble," he noticed something that would change the Buffer name forever.
1992, Evander Holyfield Riddick Bowe 1 at the Thomas & Mack, sold out. So I'm in the audience and I'm watching everybody going crazy when Michael's doing Let's Get Ready to Rumble. I mean, you got Nicholson jumping up and Hulk Hogan going nuts and everybody's just going nuts, right? And this light bulb went off in my head because I've been a marketer and a brander, a businessman before I'm an announcer my whole life, running a number of different companies. I went back to my room that night instead of going out and partying and playing blackjack and all the stuff we love to do when we're in Vegas. And I sat down and I couldn't stop, Mike. I just kept writing like 3 pages of notes, video games, toys, thinking all the stuff that can be done. And I just couldn't stop. It's like I'm just sitting there and I'm just going like this. So I contacted Michael. I want to make you richer and more famous than you ever dreamed, hopefully myself in the process. I'm willing to sell my 2 companies. I'm burned out. The best thing to do here is I want to become your manager, right? And I also want to become your partner. Because not only do we want to help you get in every form of sports and entertainment, take these 5 words, put it on the tip of everybody's tongue, make it part of American culture.
So I said to Bruce, I said, look, why don't you take these phone calls and, and we'll make the deals, and plus worked out a thing where we formed a partnership. I had the trademark, was cooking, and I said, you go out and knock on doors and we'll push the trademark and appearances, and it worked out.
Lo and behold, became his manager, became partners, started working it. Due to his brilliant ability to perform and do everything he does so well. I mean, let's face it, he's legendary, the greatest announcer of all time, 100%. Right? There's no question. And I say that with complete respect and love for my brother. And it just went on and it caught on and everything started catching. And
with everything in place, Michael started to become more famous and sought after as time went on. He was announcing for boxing, wrestling, American football, NHL games, and more. But there is one company he specifically couldn't do because of his contract.
Then I got a job with this thing called UFC. And it was like they had their 4th or 5th show, and I did 3 of them. In those days, they couldn't get licensed anywhere. So I had to go to Montana and whatever. But at the same time, I had a great deal with WCW Wrestling.
That's crazy.
So Turner and WCW, they said, look, you got this fat contract. We'd appreciate it if you didn't do that UFC stuff. That's going nowhere. So eventually, Bruce occasionally would do like an undercard for me, and he had those pipes and everything. And Bruce is actually trained in MMA. He's really knowledgeable and all. So, he said, would you mind if I try to get my foot in the door? I said, man, I'll
go for
behind you. Go for it, And that's how he got into UFC, and over 20 years now. And he's a superstar.
The story of the Buffer brothers is a fascinating and inspiring journey of 2 men who rose up to the top of their professions, despite the challenges they have faced. Their success is a testament to their hard work, perseverance, and the power of their brotherhood. The reunion of Bruce and Michael not only brought them closer as brothers, but also had a significant impact on their careers, leading to some of the most iconic sports announcements of all time. Hey guys, if you made it this far into the video, I just wanted to say thank you so much. It really helps me a lot. If you have the time, please hit the subscribe button, and here are 2 other videos I think you would like.